I'm dying on the floor of my own apartment hallway at minus 23 degrees Celsius, and through the door I can hear Saki laughing at something Ryu said. My apartment, my door, and I don't have the strength to be angry anymore. It gets dark, then it gets light. I'm in bed. My bed, the ceiling of my apartment, the water stains shaped like a boot near the window, the same one I've looked at 1,000 times. I sit up, my hands are fine, no frostbite, no pain. The floor heater clicks on automatically like it does every morning at 7. The TV is already on. A news anchor in a sharp gray suit is smiling. The atmospheric injection was completed successfully at 0400 this morning. Scientists from the Global Climate Stabilization Project confirm the chemical dispersal is proceeding within expected parameters. Early projections show surface temperatures should begin declining toward the target range within. I turned the volume down. I know this broadcast. I watched it a month ago, except that month hasn't happened yet. Today is the day they launched it, the day everything started. And the day I died is exactly 30 days from now, on the floor of this hallway, while Saki was warm inside my apartment with another man. I sit on the edge of the bed and don't move for a while. Then a window opens in the air in front of me. No sound, no flash of light. It's just there, a clean interface, pale blue text on a dark background, like something from a phone screen projected 2 feet from my face. Welcome. You have been given a second chance. Objective: build a level 100 shelter. Become the king of the Ice Age. Time remaining: 30 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes. I stare at it. Below the welcome message there's a menu. Most systems and games or movies show you one screen, a big flashy reward, a single glowing button. This one has tabs, 7 of them. The last tab is labeled Rules and Limitations. I click it. I read for 40 minutes. The system is not a miracle machine. That's the first thing I understand. It doesn't build anything. It supplies materials, raw panels, insulation, pipes, components, and it delivers them directly to a registered shelter object. What happens to those materials after delivery is entirely my problem. If I cut a panel wrong and waste it, the system doesn't send a replacement. The budget for each level is fixed. The second thing, quality is monitored. The system evaluates whether each completed stage is functional, not whether it looks finished, but whether it actually works. A wall that looks insulated but has a gap at the joint fails the check. A pipe that's connected but leaks fails the check. Failed checks result in reduced material allocation for the next level. The system calls this a deficiency penalty. It doesn't sound aggressive. It doesn't need to. The third thing, the system does not supply living things. Seeds, yes. Soil, growing medium, hydroponic equipment, yes. But livestock, poultry, anything biological with a heartbeat, not in the supply catalog. I read this line twice. I'll need to find a solution to that on my own. The fourth thing, weapons are registered. Every firearm the system provides is logged to a specific registered resident of the shelter. Transfer to an unregistered person triggers a 48-hour supply lockout. I think about what that means when strangers start showing up at the door asking to be let in. It means I need a process. I close the Rules tab and open the shelter registration function. I pointed at my apartment. Assessment, Haruto Apartment, 5F, Chuo District, Osaka. Structural thermal capacity, 31% social threat resistance, 8% combined score, 22% maximum achievable level, 25 note, high-density urban location. In social collapse scenario, building exterior will be occupied by displaced persons within 7 to 10 days. Recommend reassessment of shelter object. 22% even if I pour everything into this apartment, I hit level 25 and stop. At level 25, the shelter survives down to around minus 40. The projection I read in the forecast data, buried in a technical annex that nobody was reporting on yet, puts the floor temperature at minus 100. Level 25 is not a king's shelter. Level 25 is a slightly delayed death. I close the interface. The apartment is quiet. The TV anchor is still talking about the successful launch. Outside the window, Osaka looks exactly like it always does. Gray morning sky, vending machine lights on the corner, a taxi idling at the intersection. 30 days. I open the real estate listing site on my phone. This apartment belonged to my parents. I've lived here my whole adult life. I type in the address and start filling out the sale form. My phone buzzes. A message from Saki. Haruto, are you free tonight? I miss you. I read it. I set the phone face down on the table. I go back to the listing form. I don't reply. The listing goes up on a Tuesday. I price it 15% below market value. The apartment is clean, central, 5th floor with a view. It should move fast at the right number, and I need fast more than I need fair. 3 people come to view it in the first 2 days. The first one offers below asking. I say no. The second one wants to negotiate. I say no. The third one shows up with a briefcase and asks if I'll take cash settlement within the week. I say yes. While I wait for the paperwork to clear, I'm already driving. I have a short list of 12 properties pulled from commercial listings. Warehouses, factories, a decommissioned school, an old distribution center. Every morning I get in the car and drive. Every time I find a new address, I stop, get out, stand in front of the building and open the system interface. The system is fast with assessments. It takes maybe 4 seconds. Then the score appears with a breakdown. Day 2, a shuttered mall in Namba, 4 floors, underground parking, The score comes back at 51%. Breakdown, structural integrity adequate, but location flagged as high social conflict probability. The system estimates that in a societal collapse scenario, a building this size in this district would attract between 300 and 600 displaced persons within the first 2 weeks. I'd spend every resource defending the entrance instead of building anything. Day 3, a disused factory on the eastern edge of the city. 3 floors, decent bones, score 64%. Better, but the assessment notes the roof has load-bearing damage that would require structural repair before any upper-level insulation could pass a functional check. That's money and time I don't have. Day 4, a parking structure near Tennoji. Score, 39%. No natural light, no ventilation options, no water access. The system calls it thermally recoverable, but logistically insolvent. I write that phrase down because I didn't know the system could have opinions. Day 5, I'm driving back from another dead end, a warehouse that looked perfect in the photos and turned out to have half its floor missing when I see the first one. Red spray paint on the concrete divider beside the highway. A kanji I recognize. Renyo possession. Or more precisely, claimed. Below it, an arrow pointing toward the Nishinari district. On the next divider, 50 meters ahead, the same character, same red paint, same arrow. I slow down. On the shoulder of the road, there's a car that's been abandoned. Doors left open like whoever was in it, left in a hurry. On the hood, same kanji, same red, this time with a circle drawn around it. Someone is marking territory. The car radio has been on the whole drive. Background noise I stopped listening to an hour ago. I turn it up. Authorities have confirmed reports of an organized group occupying the Nishinari shopping complex. The group is demanding food and fuel from residents seeking to pass through the district. Police have responded, but I turn it back down. They're already organizing. We're 22 days out from the real cold and the predators are already staking claims. Whoever painted those signs on the highway didn't panic. They planned. That's more dangerous than desperation. I keep driving. Day 8. I almost miss it. The listing is easy to overlook. An old industrial warehouse, 18 kilometers outside the city, registered for commercial use. No active lease in 12 years. The photos show a building that looks like it's tired. Brick exterior darkened by weather, tall, narrow windows along the upper floor. A gravel yard enclosed by a chain-link fence that sags in the middle. Asking price is low because nobody wanted it before the world started getting colder. I drive out early in the morning. The surrounding area is flat and quiet. A line of trees runs along the eastern boundary, a proper stand. Not just ornamental, maybe 100 meters deep. There's a creek somewhere behind it. I can hear it. The road that leads here branches off the main highway 3 kilometers back and doesn't go anywhere else. I get out and open the system. The assessment runs. I watch the loading bar. It finishes. Assessment, abandoned industrial warehouse. Block 4, Higashioseka outskirts, structural thermal capacity, 74% expansion potential, high subsurface level detected, approx. 280 SQM social threat resistance, 81% fuel source proximity, confirmed. Wooded area, eastern boundary combined score, 100% maximum achievable level, 100. I read it twice. Then I read the note below it. Note, 100% score indicates full potential. Achievement of level 100 requires sequential completion of all subsystems. Skipping any subsystem blocks the next level unlock regardless of material availability. Each subsystem must pass a functional check before progression is authorized. I read that third line 3 times, sequential, every subsystem, no skipping. I think about the factory assessment, the one that flagged a roof problem before upper-level work could proceed. The system doesn't just score the building. It runs the whole future build in a logic chain and checks every link. If I try to rush ahead and leave a gap, the chain breaks. I put the interface away and walk the perimeter. The brick is thick, old construction, pre-efficiency standards, which in this case means the walls hold heat the way modern thin-panel buildings don't. The windows are high and small. The ground-level entrance is a rolling shutter wide enough for a truck, plus a side door with a frame that's still solid. Inside, through a gap in the shutter, 2 floors of open space, a metal staircase on the far wall, and about 12 tons of debris, broken pallets, rusted equipment, old piping, garbage that's been accumulating for over a decade. I'm standing in front of the gate deciding whether to call the seller when something moves near the fence post on my left. A dog. Young, maybe a year old, and Akita, the coloring pale gold and white, sitting at the base of the post and watching me with the particular focused attention of an animal that has been waiting and isn't sure yet if the wait was worth it. No collar, no leash tied anywhere. A dented metal bowl nearby, bone dry. I open my bag and take out the onigiri I packed for lunch, split it in half, set one half on the ground in front of me and step back. The dog looks at the onigiri, looks at me, gets up, walks to it, eats it in 2 bites, then sits back down in the same spot and keeps watching. I call the seller. The paperwork takes 2 days. The apartment money clears. After the purchase and transfer fees, I have 180,000 yen left. It sounds like something until I think about what I need to build, and then it sounds like nothing. I register the warehouse with the system, the interface acknowledges the address, runs a final structural confirmation, and then displays, shelter object, registered, current level, 0 next unlock, Level 1 materials condition for unlock. Complete premises clearance. Estimated debris volume, 12 tonnes. Note, system delivery will trigger upon confirmation of functional clearance. Clearance is defined as removal of all non-structural debris and hazardous material from primary floor area. Partial clearance does not qualify. I look at 12 tons of debris spread across 2,000 square meters. The dog, I've started calling him Shiro in my head, white, though his coat is more gold than white, has followed me through the gate and is now sitting in the middle of the floor surveying the same disaster with what looks like professional judgment. I need workers. The posting goes up that evening. General labor, cash daily, immediate start, no experience required. One condition, willingness to work hard and ask few questions. One person responds, his name is Goro. He shows up the next morning in work boots that have seen more construction sites than most contractors, and a jacket that probably cost 3,000 yen in 1998 and has since earned it back twice over. He's 55, maybe 60, built like someone who spent decades carrying things. He walks the full interior of the warehouse without saying anything, checks the wall thickness near the entrance, taps the floor in 2 places, looks up at the ceiling, comes back to where I'm standing. You've never held a drill, he says. Not a question. No. He looks at me for another second. Okay, so you hold the money. He's hired. The clearance takes 4 days. Goro works at a pace that's not fast but never stops. I work alongside him. I'm not useful at anything requiring skill, but I can carry and sort and haul. Shiro patrols the perimeter during the day. Twice he starts barking at the fence line, 2 different people, different days, who are walking slowly past the gate and slowing down to look. Both times they moved on. On the morning of the 5th day, I open the system and the status has updated. Clearance, confirmed. 100% level, 1 materials. Delivering now. The delivery doesn't announce itself. There's no sound, no light. I'm looking at the corner of the warehouse floor, when the materials simply appear: 30 bags of mineral wool insulation, 2 coils of foil backing tape, a box of fasteners, a basic installation guide printed on thick paper. As if they'd always been there and I just hadn't looked at that corner before. Goro sees it. He goes still. He stares at the bags for a long time. Then, all right, we work. Levels 1 through 4 move steadily. The mineral wool goes on the interior walls of the ground floor. Goro leads, I follow. I learn to use the drill. I learn that the foil tape needs to overlap by at least 3 centimeters at every seam, or the system flags it. I find this out the hard way on level 3. I'm working on the east wall, moving fast because the temperature outside is dropping another degree every day now, and the news is starting to sound less confident. I miss a seam overlap. 1 spot, maybe 2 centimeters short. That evening the interface updates. Level 3 inspection. Deficiency detected. Location. East wall. Section 4. Joint to failure at seam. Result. Level 4. Material budget reduced by 15%. Note, deficiency penalty cannot be reversed. Ensure complete functional integrity before marking stage is complete. I show Goro the notification. He reads it. Then he looks at me. It's checking us, he says. It's always check. I fix the seam. Goro watches me do it without commenting, which from him means approval. Level 5 brings the first real decision. The system presents 2 options for the level 5. Unlock. Option A, enhanced thermal insulation package, increases ground floor thermal retention by 40%. Recommended for temperatures below -30 degrees Celsius. Option B, base electrical generator unit required for activation of electrical subsystems including lighting, water pumps, and surveillance. Without this unit, electrical subsystem unlocks are blocked at all levels. I read both descriptions fully, then I read them again. The problem is clear. Option A is what I need right now. It's getting colder, and the current insulation handles down to around -25. Option B is what I need eventually. Without a generator, I can't unlock cameras, water pumps, or any electronic system, which means the shelter stops developing at a certain point regardless of level, but eventually assumes I'm still alive to get there. I take option A. Then I open my notebook and write, generator, buy secondhand while yen still means something. The next morning I drive to an industrial salvage market 40 minutes away and spend 35,000 yen on a used diesel generator, battered but functional. Goro inspects it for 20 minutes, replaces 2 connections, and declares it adequate. We run a power cable from it to a single overhead work light and turn it on. The warehouse has light. It doesn't look like much. 1 bare bulb throwing shadows across brick and insulation, but Shiro walks to the center of the floor, sits directly under it, and looks up. Level 5 complete. The walls hold down to -40, outside -9, and dropping. The news anchor from day 1 isn't smiling anymore. 22 days left on the clock. Resources. Level 5 shelter, enhanced insulation, second-hand diesel generator, Goro, 145,000 yen remaining. Shiro. Level 6 delivers partition panels. I count them when they appear. 42 panels, enough for 6 rooms if I plan carefully. I had planned for 8. I open my notebook and look at the layout sketch I drew 3 days ago. Storage room separate from the repair area, workshop separate from the living quarters, a small private room for myself off the main corridor. 6, Goro says, looking at the stack. He's not asking. I know. He crouches down and picks up one of the panels, turns it over. These are good quality, Better than what you'd buy. 6 rooms, I say. Storage and workshop have to share. Same wall-divided shelf unit down the middle. You can access repair tools from one side and food stocks from the other, without walking through each other's space. Goro stands and looks at the floor plan I've sketched in chalk on the concrete. He studies it for longer than feels comfortable. Then he picks up a drill. You planned 8 and got 6, he says, starting to measure. Most people would complain. You just redrew the lines. He doesn't say anything else about it. The partition work takes 3 days. Goro handles the framing. I handle the panel mounting under his direction. By level 8, the ground floor is no longer a single open space. It's a corridor with doors, walls that stop the wind when someone moves through the building, separate zones for separate functions. It looks like somewhere people could actually live. Level 9 delivers shelving, steel frames, adjustable brackets, a dozen large plastic storage containers with locking lids. The system provides the infrastructure for a proper supply room. What it does not provide is anything to put in it. I take the car into the city. The drive feels different now. The temperature is -14 and the roads are starting to show it. Fewer cars, more abandoned ones, a petrol station on the bypass with a handwritten sign taped to the pump that says "Clode, no supply." The convenience store I stop at has gaps on the shelves where the rice used to be. I buy everything they have left: 12 bags of rice, 2 crates of canned fish and vegetables, 6 large water containers, iodine tablets, salt, instant miso in bulk. The total is 62,000 yen. I pay in cash and load the car without counting what's left in my wallet until I'm back on the highway. When I get back, Goro helps me stack everything on the new shelves. He counts as he goes. He can't help it. He's that kind of person. When we're done, he stands back and looks at the full room. 2 people, maybe 3 months. He says 4 people, 6 weeks, will be more than 4. He looks at me. Soon, I say. He goes back to work. They arrive 2 days later. Shiro hears them first, a low sound in his throat. Not a bark, just a frequency that means something is coming, and I haven't decided yet. I check the gate. 2 people on foot coming down the access road from the highway. A woman and a man, both moving slowly, the kind of slow that isn't tired so much as careful. I watch them from the gate. Shiro sits beside me. The woman is young, early 20s, a medical bag over one shoulder, a posture that stays straight even when she's exhausted. The man is bigger, late 20s, moving like someone who spent years standing in one place watching for trouble. Both of them are dressed for weather, but not for this weather. Not for what's coming. They stop about 10 meters from the gate. The woman speaks first. Is there someone in charge here? Yes, I say. We're not here to take anything. We just need somewhere warm. Shiro makes the frequency again, not hostile. Considering, do you have skills? I ask. She blinks. I'm a nurse. The man says, security, 6 years. I open the gate. The condition is the same one I set for Goro and that I'll set for anyone else. You work, you stay. You stop working, you leave. The shelter is not a hotel and I'm not running a charity. Both of them agree without hesitation, which tells me they've been outside long enough to know that terms are better than nothing. Her name is Nana, his name is Ken. They eat, sleep 4 hours, and are both working by the following morning. Nana doing an inventory of the medical supplies I bought. Ken walking the perimeter of the fence with the systematic attention of someone mentally marking every weakness. Good. We need that. Level 11 arrives with a notification I read twice. Level 11 materials. Greenhouse module delivering. Polycarbonate wall panels X18, structural framing X1 set, grow light fixtures X6, soil medium 40 kilograms, seed variety pack X1. Note, greenhouse requires south-facing orientation for passive thermal gain. Current building orientation, suitable. And below that, in a separate box, advance notice, level 13, small farm module delivering, animal enclosures X4, feeding equipment, bedding material, feedstock 30-day supply. Note, system supply catalog does not include live animals. Procurement of livestock is the responsibility of the shelter operator. I read the second note carefully. The system will build me a farm, structure, equipment, feed, but it won't populate it. That's my problem. Nana takes over the greenhouse before I even ask her to. It turns out her mother kept a kitchen garden for 20 years and some things don't leave you. She studies the grow light placement for half an hour, repositions 2 of the fixtures before I've said anything, and starts the first seed trays that afternoon. She knows what she's doing. The greenhouse goes up over 2 days. When the panels are locked and the lights are on and the first trays are set into the soil medium, it's the warmest room in the building. Standing inside it at -20 outside feels like a small miracle, except it's not a miracle. It's polycarbonate and insulation and positioning, and the system knowing what it's doing. Around level 12, Takashi shows up. He's not alone. He comes with 2 others, a man and a woman who look like they've been walking for a long time. But it's Takashi I notice first, because when I open the gate and ask the standard questions, skills, work, terms, the other 2 answer, and he doesn't. He's looking past me at the cable routing along the ceiling of the entrance corridor. Who did the electrical, he asks. I did, Goro says from behind me, not bothering to turn around. The routing is fine, but you've got a grounding issue on the secondary line. If you run anything above about 2 kilowatts off that circuit, it'll give you trouble. Goro turns around, looks at Takashi for a moment. How old are you? 24. How do you know there's a grounding issue from standing at the gate? I can see the connection point from here. The clamp angle is wrong. Goro looks at the connection point, then at Takashi. Get in. Takashi is a programmer by training, but electronics is how he thinks. Within the first hour, he's found 3 wiring problems I didn't know existed, fixed 2 of them, and made a list of components he needs for the 3rd. I add the parts to the next supply run. His 2 companions, a man in his 50s named Hayashi and a quiet woman named Rika, both have practical skills and both accept the terms. 6 people now. Plus, Shiro. Levels 13 and 14 bring the farm module. The enclosures go up in a section of the ground floor I've been keeping clear. 4 separate pens, feeding troughs, a water line, storage for the feed the system delivered. Everything except the one thing that makes a farm, a farm. I stand in the empty pens and look at the 4 walls and the clean straw bedding and the full feed troughs. Takashi, I say. Already looked it up, he says, coming to stand beside me. There's an agricultural property about 5 kilometers north. Satellite view shows outbuildings that haven't been demolished. Somebody kept livestock there. How do you know they left? Because everybody left? He pauses. Mostly everybody. I look at Ken. He's already reaching for his jacket. They take the van and are gone for 2 hours. When they come back, the van is making sounds I've never heard a van make. A specific collection of indignant noises from the cargo section that Goro identifies before they've even opened the doors. Chickens, he says flatly. 4 chickens and 2 rabbits alive. Unhappy about the van ride, but uninjured. Ken looks like he's had a complicated morning. Takashi looks faintly satisfied. I help move the animals into the pens. Nana comes to look and immediately starts checking them over the way she checks everything. Hands-on, methodical, taking notes. The chickens settle within the hour. The rabbits take longer. Shiro sits at the entrance to the farm section and watches with extreme professional focus until I tell him firmly to go somewhere else, which he does, but slowly. Goro appears at my shoulder. Was that in the plan? The system said, find them yourself, so I found them. He watches one of the chickens investigate its water trough. I've worked for a lot of people, he says. Most of them, when something doesn't come the way they expected, they stand around waiting for it to come another way. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. That evening, the 2 refugees from Level 12's group, Hayashi and Rika, are quiet at dinner, quieter than usual. After we eat, I ask them directly what they're holding back. Hayashi looks at his bowl for a moment, then he talks. They came from a shopping mall in Nishinari. A group of survivors had been using it as a base, about 40 people, pooling resources, rotating watch shifts. It worked for about a week. Then other people arrived, not as refugees. They came organized, a clear hierarchy, assigned roles, communication equipment, led by a man who introduced himself as Kazuma. Calm voice, maybe 40 years old, no wasted movements. Kazuma gave everyone in the mall 2 options. Option 1, stay and work under his structure. Option 2, leave with what you can carry. He didn't threaten anyone, I ask. He didn't need to, Hayashi says. He just explained the options and waited. When about a third of the people said they weren't staying, he helped them pack, politely. Then he watched them walk out the door. A pause. Into -22. How many people does he have? When we left, close to 70. More kept arriving. His people went out recruiting. The woman Rika speaks for the first time. He talked about the system. He knew what it was. He said the shelters built with the system were the real resources. Not the food, not the fuel. The shelters. I look at her. He said that specifically? He said he'd already taken one. The table is quiet. Until today I was building against the cold. -100 degrees, 30 days. Level 30 minimum to survive. That was the problem. That was the only problem. It isn't anymore. Takashi, I say. He's already looking at me. How quickly can you set up a radio receiver? I want to know what frequency Kazuma's people are using. He thinks for maybe 3 seconds. Give me 2 days and the right components. I write the parts list that night. Resources, level 15. 6 residents plus Shiro. Greenhouse producing, farm operational, 4 chickens, 2 rabbits, food supply approximately 2 months for current group. 85,000 yen remaining. 12 days on the clock. 2 threats now. The cold is the one I planned for. Kazuma is the one I didn't. Both are real. Level 16 delivers a kitchen. More precisely, it delivers the components of a kitchen, a commercial-grade gas range with 4 burners, stainless steel prep surfaces, ventilation hood, a sink basin with drain assembly, and 30 meters of copper pipe in 2 diameters. The pipe is for the water system. The system delivers the materials in 1 drop and expects me to figure out the sequence. Goro looks at the copper pipe for a moment, mentally routing it. 2 days, he says. We have 8. Then I'll take 2. He works without stopping for 41 hours. I know because I check the time when he starts and check it again when he straightens up, wipes his hands on a rag, and says the pipework is done. He eats, sleeps 6 hours, and comes back to finish the range installation and hood venting. I help where I can. Mostly I stay out of his way and hand him things when he asks. On the evening of the 2nd day, Nana cooks rice and miso soup and grilled fish from the canned stock. Nothing complicated. She serves it in the new kitchen, at the folding table we've set up along the wall, and everyone sits down together for the first time. Nobody talks much. The soup is hot. The kitchen smells like food instead of concrete dust and insulation adhesive. Outside, the temperature is minus 17. In here, it's warm enough that Ken has taken off his jacket. Shiro sits near the doorway and receives a piece of fish from Takashi, which he eats with dignity. Goro finishes his bowl, sets down the chopsticks, doesn't say anything. That's how I know it's good. Level 17 fills out the kitchen. Level 18 is supposed to be the boiler room. I check the unlock conditions for level 18 as soon as the level 17 materials are delivered. Level 18 unlock. Boiler system status. Blocked reason. Prerequisite not met. Water circulation system incomplete. Current functional status of water system. 70% repeated status for unlock. 100% action repeated. Complete water circulation loop, including return line and pressure regulation. System will re-evaluate upon reported completion. I find Goro in the workshop section, show him the notification, he reads it. Then he goes to the water system and starts tracing the pipe run with his hand, checking each connection. He finds it in about 3 minutes, a section of return line that he'd planned to finish later, deprioritized because the water was flowing and the sink was working. And it felt done. 70%, he says, mostly to himself. The system doesn't care that the tap works. It checks the whole loop. He doesn't respond to that. He picks up a pipe cutter. The remaining work takes most of a day. The return line, the pressure valve, a flow regulator near the basement access. When it's done, he reports completion through the interface. The system evaluates for about 8 seconds. Water circulation system, functional. 100% level 18 UN lock. Boiler system, now available. I select it immediately. The boiler system components arrive in the basement. This is the right place for it. The underground level is the most thermally stable part of the building, and running heat distribution from the lowest point means the system works with convection instead of against it. Goro understands this without being told. He's already mentally mapped the pipe routing to the upper floors by the time I come downstairs. The installation takes 3 days. It's the most complex thing we've built so far, not because any single part is difficult, but because it has to connect correctly to everything else. The pipe runs have to reach every room. The pressure has to balance across 6 distribution points. The boiler itself has to be mounted level, sealed properly, and integrated with the ventilation so the combustion gases go out, rather than in. On the second day, I open the system spec sheet for the boiler unit and read the operational notes. And then I read the line I should have checked earlier. Fuel requirements. The boiler system operates on wood, coal, or diesel fuel. The system supply catalog does not include fuel of any type. Fuel sourcing and ongoing supply is the responsibility of the shelter operator. I sit with that for a moment. The system built me a boiler that needs fuel and has no intention of providing it. I look at the delivery again. The boiler, the pipes, the fittings, the control unit. Perfect, complete, entirely useless without something to burn. I go to the window that faces east and look at the tree line. The wooded area along the eastern boundary is a proper stand of timber, mostly cedar and cypress, dense, maybe 300 meters deep before it opens to the creek. In normal circumstances, cutting wood, there would require permits. In current circumstances, permits are a concept that stopped mattering about 10 days ago. Ken and Takashi start the next morning. I have 2 hand saws, 1 chainsaw from the salvage market, and 2 people who are capable of using them. They work in 2-hour shifts, cold management, not fatigue management. And by the end of the first day, we have enough wood stacked inside the eastern wall to run the boiler for 4 days. It's not enough, not nearly. We need 3 months of supply, I tell them at dinner. Ken does the math out loud. At current consumption rate for the boiler, 3 months is roughly a lot of trees. Every day that it's safe to go outside. I say, we cut. Takashi nods. He's already thinking about something else. I can tell by the angle of his head. What? I ask. I've been working on the radio receiver, he says. I finished it this afternoon. He built it from components I bought on the last supply, run into the city. That trip already feels like a different era. The city looked like a city. Stores were open. The temperature was only minus 14. He's assembled the receiver on the workbench in his section of the shared workspace, a compact unit with a digital frequency scanner and a small speaker, connected to an antenna wire. He ran up through a gap near the eastern wall. He turns it on after dinner, and we sit around the workbench listening to static with occasional voices bleeding through. Most of what we catch is personal, people on home radios trying to reach family members, a few automated emergency broadcasts that stopped being updated 2 days ago, a ham operator somewhere to the north reading weather data into the void. Then Takashi finds the frequency. The voice is calm, not the calm of someone who is trying to sound calm, the calm of someone for whom calm is a professional standard. Sector 7C secured. Inventory count. 2 weeks food supply. 40 personnel absorbed into operational structure. Moving to Sector 9-A. ETA 4 hours. Confirm receipt. A brief pause, then a different voice. Same register. Confirmed. Sector 9A authorized. I look at Takashi. Sector 9A, he says. He pulls up a rough map he's been building from road signs and satellite imagery on his laptop. Points to a location. Approximately 7 kilometers. 7 kilometers. I stand up and walk to the eastern window. It's dark outside. The temperature on the outdoor sensor reads minus 26. I can see the tree line as a black mass against slightly lighter sky. I think about the voice on the radio. Sector 7C secured. That's not the language of someone improvising. That's grid coordination, inventory reporting, personnel counts. Whoever Kazuma has running communications has done this before. Maybe Kazuma himself has done this before. I go back to the table and mark Sector 9A on Takashi's map. The next evening, Goro comes to find me. He doesn't say anything. He just tilts his head toward the eastern window. I look. On the horizon, in the direction of Sector 9A, a glow. Orange and diffuse, not the sharp point of a light source. Something larger. Fire, Goro says. No, I say, look at the color. Fire is orange-white. That's orange-red, and it's too even. It's flares, signal flares, or something burning continuously on purpose. I watch it for a moment. It's how they mark territory at night, so anyone within 20 kilometers knows that location is taken. Goro stands beside me and watches the glow. Shiro is at the gate facing east, absolutely still. 7 kilometers. Goro says, yes. He goes back to work. He doesn't ask me what I'm planning to do about it because by now he knows I'll tell him when I know. Levels 24 and 25 arrive together, and I read the upgrade options carefully before selecting anything. Level 24-25 combined upgrade. Select 1. Option A. Expanded boiler capacity increases heat output by 60%. Supports up to 25 residents at sustained comfort temperature. Recommended for shelters expecting population growth. Option B. Mechanical ventilation system. Full air circulation and filtration for sealed shelter operation. Warning. At external temperatures below -70 degrees Celsius, passive ventilation becomes non-functional. Without mechanical ventilation, CO2 buildup in sealed shelter reaches critical levels within 6 to 8 hours. And below both options, the system reminder I've read before. Note. Emergency Advance Unlock is available for non-selected option. Cost, material allocation for next 3 levels will be 0. This penalty cannot be waived. I read the warning on option B 3 times. At -70, passive ventilation stops working. We're currently at -26 and dropping. The projection data I've been tracking puts the floor temperature at -100. That means at some point, probably within 3 weeks, we will be in a sealed shelter with no natural air exchange. Without mechanical ventilation, everyone inside dies of CO2 poisoning in 6 to 8 hours. Option A gives us more heat. More heat is good, but more heat means nothing if we suffocate. The problem is the penalty. 3 levels with 0 material allocation means 3 levels where the system delivers empty containers. We lose roughly a week of development time. Materials we would have used for the next phase of construction arrive as nothing. I look at the calendar on my phone. 8 days until peak cold. I select option B and activate the emergency advance unlock. The confirmation appears. Ventilation system unlocked. In Nosling now. Note. Levels 26, 27, and 28 material allocation, 0. This penalty is recorded and cannot be reversed. Goro reads the notification over my shoulder. 3 levels of empty boxes, he says. Yes. He's quiet for a moment. The boiler runs hotter in a sealed space anyway. Efficiency goes up. We probably didn't need the expansion. That's what I thought. You could have just said that. I did the math first. He makes a sound that is not quite a laugh. Goes downstairs to start the ventilation installation. By the end of the day, the mechanical system is running. A quiet, constant movement of air through the building, in through filtered intake, out through sealed exhaust. CO2 monitored by a sensor Takashi mounts above the main corridor. The number on the display sits comfortably in the green range. Outside, -29, 8 days left. Kazuma's people are 7 kilometers away and moving in grid pattern. Inside, warm, breathing, 6 people and a dog who patrols the fence line every 2 hours, whether anyone asks him to or not. The boiler runs on wood. The wood comes from the tree line. The tree line is still there. For now, that's enough. Resources level 25. Boiler system, operational. Fuel, wood. Ongoing supply from eastern tree line. Current stock, 3 weeks. Full mechanical ventilation active. 6 residents plus Shiro. Marauder activity confirmed 7 kilometers east. 8 days remaining. 85,000 yen. 3 penalty levels incoming. 26, 27, 28 deliver 0 materials. Levels 26, 27, and 28 deliver empty boxes. Not metaphorically. The system drops the containers on schedule. Same size, same markings as always. And when I open them, there's nothing inside. Clean plastic walls, intact lids, air. The penalty I accepted when I took the ventilation advance is paying out exactly as advertised. Goro opens the first box, looks inside, closes it, opens the second, closes it, stands back with his arms crossed. You knew, he says. It's not quite an accusation. I knew too. He looks at the stack of empty containers, still angry. That's fair. He picks up one of the empty boxes and carries it to the storage room to use as a shelf extender. Practical to the end. The 3 penalty levels aren't wasted time. Exactly. Without new materials arriving, there's nothing to install, but there's plenty to do. Ken and Takashi are in the tree line every day that the weather allows, building the firewood stack against the eastern interior wall. Nana is tracking the greenhouse output and adjusting the grow light schedule based on what the seedlings are actually doing versus what the instruction sheet says they should be doing. Hayashi and Rika have taken over daily maintenance rounds, checking seals, monitoring the boiler pressure, logging the CO2 display readings that Takashi set up in the main corridor. The shelter runs. It runs without new materials because it was built correctly enough that it doesn't need constant addition to function. That's not an accident. That's what the sequential build was for. Level 28 ends and level 29 arrives with the armory. The delivery is straightforward. A steel gun cabinet with a locking mechanism keyed to the system interface, 4 hunting rifles with basic sighting, 400 rounds of ammunition in sealed boxes, and a notification I read before I touch anything. Armory system important. All firearms are registered to specific shelter residents at the point of issuance. Transfer of a registered firearm to any unregistered individual will trigger a 48-hour lockout on all future armory supply deliveries. Registration requires full name, shelter residency confirmation, and system acknowledgement. Unregistered individuals may not receive or use system-issued firearms. I call everyone into the main room. There are 7 of us. I explain the registration system clearly, what it means, what the penalty is, why it matters. Then I tell them I'm registering 4 people tonight. Myself, Goro, Ken, and Nana. Takashi, Hayashi, and Rika will be registered tomorrow, after a conversation I need to have with each of them individually. Not because I distrust them, they've all been here long enough to have earned basic trust, but because firearm registration under the system is permanent, and I want to be deliberate about it. Takashi nods immediately. Hayashi looks at the rifle cabinet and nods. Rika just says, understood. Ken handles the registered weapons from the first evening. He checks each rifle the way he checks everything. Slowly, completely, starting at one end and working to the other. He shows Goro how to load and clear. Goro goes through the motions without enthusiasm, but with the same precision he brings to everything else. I was hoping it would give us something more useful, Ken says, looking at the hunting rifles. What did you have in mind? Something with range. We have the tree line. Anything coming from the east has to cross open ground before it reaches the fence. A hunting rifle at that distance is adequate. He accepts this without argument. He's thinking about fields of fire. Good. Level 29 also delivers the cameras. 12 units, weatherproof housing, night vision capability with a central recording unit that Takashi has connected to a monitor on the main workbench within 2 hours of delivery. By evening, we can see every approach to the building, the access road from the highway, the eastern perimeter along the tree line, the southern and northern fence lines, the gate. Takashi sits in front of the monitor and doesn't move for a while, not because something is happening, because now he can see everything, and he's learning what normal looks like before something abnormal shows up. Label the cameras, I tell him. Number them. Note the angle and coverage zone. When something happens, I need you to be able to say, Camera 4, and have me know exactly what I'm looking at. He starts labeling. Camera 4 faces northeast, covering the stretch of chain link fence that runs along the back of the property toward the tree line. It's the farthest point from the gate. The camera image is slightly darker than the others, the night vision working a little harder at that distance. Shiro wakes me up. He doesn't bark. He stands at the door of my room and makes the low continuous sound, the one that means something is present, and he's already assessed it as a problem. I'm up before I've consciously decided to be pulling on boots, moving to the monitor room. Takashi is already there. Camera 4, a figure at the fence line on the outside, standing still, not trying to climb, not moving along the perimeter, just standing there facing the building. There's something in their hands, but the image resolution at this distance makes it hard to read. A notebook maybe, a device of some kind. Shiro comes and stands beside me, looking at the monitor, still making that sound. How long? I ask Takashi. He was there when I sat down, maybe 10 minutes before you came in. Ken appears in the doorway fully dressed, one of the rifles in hand. I can go out the side door and come around through the tree line. No, I say. He waits. We don't go out. We watch. If he's doing reconnaissance, going out confirms we noticed him. Staying in means we're either asleep or we don't care. Either way, he learns less. Ken lowers the rifle slightly. He doesn't agree. I can see that, but he waits. The figure stands at camera 4 for 23 minutes. Then turns and walks east, back into the tree line, and disappears. Nobody sleeps much after that. In the morning, there's a mark on the gate. Red spray paint. The same kanji I saw on the highway dividers 3 weeks ago, Genyo claimed, this time without an arrow. Just the character, centered on the gate panel, fresh enough that if I'd come out an hour earlier, I would have seen it being applied. I stand in front of it in the cold for a moment. Kazuma's people know this location. They know the building is occupied. The lights, the smoke from the boiler exhaust, the antenna wire Takashi ran up the wall. They've logged it in whatever grid system they're using. Sector something, a notation in a database, a location to return to. I take a photograph of the mark with my phone, then I go inside. I don't tell everyone at breakfast. I tell Ken and Takashi and Goro. The others will know eventually, but there's nothing useful they can do with the information right now, and worry is a resource expenditure that doesn't produce output. He was measuring the fence, Ken says, looking for weak points. The back section near camera 4 is still chain link. That's what he was mapping. I know. We need solid panels back there. We will have them. We're 2 levels from the fence upgrade. He accepts this, barely. The government announcement comes through on the radio at noon. An official voice, the kind that reads from a prepared text and doesn't deviate. informing the residents of Osaka Prefecture that a mandatory evacuation order is now in effect for all urban zones. Emergency shelters have been established at designated inland locations. All residents are urged to proceed immediately. The atmospheric temperature is expected to continue falling beyond safe human tolerance within 48 to 72 hours. 48 to 72 hours. 2 days. Everyone is in the main room. They've all heard it. The radio sits on the table, still crackling with the repeat broadcast. Same words, same voice, on loop. Nana looks at me. Are we going? No. The emergency shelters are large buildings full of people who all need heat, food, and water, being managed by a government that couldn't stabilize the atmosphere when they had a month to try. I look at the rest of the room. We have heat, we have food, we have water, we have walls that will hold. Silence. The radio loops again. Mandatory evacuation order now in effect. Goro turns it off. 2 days later, the system delivers level 30. Level 30. Materials, emergency, thermal barrier installing, full perimeter thermal reinforcement, upgraded window ceiling, subfloor heating layer for basement level. Outdated shelter tolerance, nated 85 degrees Celsius sustained. Note, this upgrade represents a critical threshold. Temperatures below 85 degrees Celsius will require further structural upgrades to maintain habitability. The installation runs automatically overnight. This is the first time the system has handled installation without requiring our labor. When I wake up, the walls feel different, not visibly different. But the building holds the heat from the boiler more completely, the way a properly sealed thermos holds temperature compared to an open container. The outdoor thermometer reads -42. I bring everyone together in the main room, show them the level 30 notification, the new tolerance rating, the temperature outside. Goro looks at the display for a long moment, then at me. You always knew this number, he says. 30. You've been working toward exactly 30 since the day I arrived. Yes, why 30? Because 30 is where we stop being in immediate danger of dying from the cold and start having room to think about everything else. He nods slowly. And everything else, he says, is the man who painted our gate, among other things. Outside, -42 and falling. 2 days since the evacuation order. The city is emptying. The access road has been quiet for 18 hours. Inside level 30, 7 people. 1 dog who is currently sitting in front of camera 4's monitor image as if he's personally keeping watch. The cold is no longer the only problem. It's not even the biggest one, but we're still here, and the building holds. Resources, level 30, emergency thermal barrier active. Shelter holds to -85 degrees Celsius. 7 residents plus Shiro. Firearms registered for 4 residents, 3 pending. Camera system operational, 12 units. Gate marked by Kazuma's scouts. Location confirmed in their grid. 2 days since evacuation order. City largely empty. Penalty levels completed. Normal material supply resumes at level 31. The roads have been empty for 2 days. Not quiet, empty. The access road that connects us to the highway hasn't seen a moving vehicle since the evacuation order. Occasionally a shape appears on the highway in the distance, visible through the gap in the tree line. Someone on foot, moving fast, not stopping. By the second day, even those stop appearing. Outside, the thermometer reads -60. The boiler runs on an 8-hour fuel cycle now. Ken and Takashi stopped being able to cut wood when the temperature dropped past -45. The cold at that level isn't manageable with the gear we have for extended outdoor work. We have enough stockpiled to last 3 weeks at current consumption. After that, either the temperature rises enough to cut safely or we find another solution. I've already started thinking about what that solution is, but that's a problem for later. The shelter holds at +14 inside, the chickens are laying, the greenhouse is producing its first usable greens, the CO2 display in the corridor reads normal. 7 people are alive and functional inside a brick building at -60 because we built it correctly, in the right sequence, without skipping anything. For about 4 hours it feels almost manageable. Then Takashi puts his hand up from the radio station. It's directed at us, he says, not a broadcast. Pointed transmission, our specific frequency. Everyone in the main room goes still. The voice that comes through the speaker is clear, despite the distance. Male, probably 40, the kind of calm that doesn't require effort. This is Kazuma. You're operating a good facility. I respect that. A building like yours needs to stay intact and functional, not get burned down by people who don't understand what they have. I'm proposing a working arrangement, 20% of your monthly supplies delivered to a location I'll specify, and in return, your facility operates under our protection. No interference, no forced entry. You have 48 hours to respond on this frequency. The transmission ends, static. Nobody speaks for a moment. Protection from who? Ken says from him. Goro says. He's not being sarcastic. I look at the radio. 20% of monthly supplies sounds like a negotiated number, reasonable on the surface, but 20% to Kazuma means Kazuma knows what we have. It means regular contact, regular inventory confirmation, regular presence at a delivery point. It means the arrangement can be renegotiated upward at any time from a position of strength by someone who has 100 people and a vehicle we can't stop. I don't respond. 48 hours pass. I spend them working. Level 31 materials have started arriving again after the 3 penalty levels, and the steel fence panels that should have come at level 29 are finally here. Goro and Ken spend both days mounting panels over the chain link sections, starting with the northeast run that the scout was mapping from camera 4. On the 49th hour, the radio activates again. Same voice, same calm. Silence noted. That means you're thinking. Thinking is smart. Think faster. I stand at the radio for a moment. Then I sit down next to Takashi. Can you make our signal look weaker than it is? I want anyone receiving us to think we're a small group. Bad equipment, low power, not much to offer. Takashi turns this over. That's a hardware problem, not software. You'd need to physically reduce transmission power and add interference to the outgoing signal. Not complicated, but it takes some adjustment. He pauses. The tricky part is making it sound natural. Artificial interference sounds artificial if you know what you're listening for. Does Kazuma know what he's listening for? His communications setup is professional. Whoever runs it probably does. Can you do it anyway? Another pause. Longer, yes. It takes him 90 minutes. He modifies the transmission unit, adds a component that degrades the outgoing signal in a specific way, the kind of degradation that looks like old equipment and a weak power source rather than deliberate manipulation. He tests it twice before he's satisfied. I key the radio received. I keep my voice flat, slightly strained, the way someone sounds when they're cold and tired, and not sure the radio is working. 7 of us here. Food is low, maybe a month left. We don't have anything to share. We're barely managing. I release the key. 20 seconds of silence. Then Kazuma's voice. Understood. We'll check. The transmission ends. I look at Takashi. He looks at me. We'll check means he's going to send someone. That was already happening. The scout at camera 4 confirmed that. But now he's going to send someone expecting to find a struggling group of 7 people with a month of food and weak radio equipment. What he finds instead will tell him something. I need to make sure what he finds matches the story. When the next scout comes, I tell Ken. 1 light on in the building. Not all the rooms. Wood pile visible but small, move most of it to the basement before they arrive. No activity on the perimeter. Ken starts to object. I know, it feels wrong, but we're not ready for a direct confrontation yet. We need 2 more levels. He doesn't like it. He agrees. 3 days later, Shiro wakes me again. Camera 2? Not camera 4, 2 which covers the access road and the main gate. A figure on foot coming down the road from the highway direction, moving slowly. Alone, I watch for a minute. The figure reaches the gate and stops. Something about the posture is familiar before I can explain why. The way they stand, weight slightly to one side, arms crossed against the cold. I've seen that before, you know her? Ken asks from the doorway. He's been watching the monitor, yes. I go to the gate myself. She looks up when I open it. Saki, she's dressed for serious cold. She found that much somewhere between the city and here. Her face is wind-burned and she's been walking long enough that she's not quite steady on her feet. But she's standing and her eyes are clear. And when she sees me, she goes through 3 expressions in about 2 seconds. Relief. Then something like guilt, then something harder to read. Haruto, she looks at my face and the relief shifts. You knew, that's why you stopped answering. It's not a question. Come inside, I say. Same terms as everyone else. You work, you stay. You stop working, you leave. She searches my face for something, anger maybe, or the performance of forgiveness she might have been rehearsing on the road. She doesn't find either. Okay, she says. I step back and let her through. Shiro is in the corridor when we come in. He looks at Saki without moving toward her. He doesn't growl, he just watches, the way he watches things he hasn't decided about yet. Saki looks down at him. He looks back. After a moment he turns and walks toward the farm section, which is where he goes when he's done assessing something and hasn't reached a conclusion. I register Saki in the system that evening. 7th full resident. I note the registration time and date the way I note everything. Nana finds me afterward, in the corridor near the boiler access stairs. Be careful with her, she says. Not loudly, not as a challenge. I know. She nods once and goes back to the greenhouse. She doesn't elaborate and doesn't need to. Nana notices things the way Takashi notices wiring, and Goro notices structural problems. Early, quietly, accurately. She noticed something about Saki in the first hour and she's telling me she noticed it. I already know. But it's useful that she said it. Outside, -63 and dropping. The city is empty. The access road is empty. The radio has been quiet for 3 days since Kazuma said we'll check. Someone is coming to check. We don't know when. Inside, level 30 holding. 7 residents plus Shiro. The fence panels on the northeast run are solid now. The wood supply is in the basement, mostly hidden. 1 light on in the building at night. We look like what Kazuma expects to find for a little while longer. That's enough. Level 31 delivers reinforced wall panels and the first batch of steel fence sections. Goro is standing next to me when they appear. He looks at the stack of solid steel, heavy gauge, pre-drilled for post-mounting, each section 2 meters tall. He picks up the nearest panel, checks the edge finish, sets it down. Finally, he says, that's all. He's already calculating the post spacing in his head. The fence work can only happen outside, which means it can only happen when the temperature is survivable. At -63, that means nobody goes out without full thermal coverage. The system delivers 2 thermal work suits at level 33, insulated full-body construction gear with sealed gloves and face protection. Ken and Takashi take them without discussion. They're the 2 people most capable of working fast in difficult conditions, and the suits only fit people in a certain size range, which conveniently describes both of them. They work in 90-minute shifts, 1 outside mounting panels, 1 inside warming up and monitoring the work from camera feed. Goro directs through the window intercom Takashi rigged from spare parts, a simple system, a microphone inside connected to a speaker mounted under the eave outside, so Goro can correct post alignment without suiting up. The fence takes shape section by section over several days. I watch the progress on the camera feeds, the chain link giving way to steel panel, the perimeter becoming something that looks like it means what it says. The northeast run goes first, the section the scout was mapping, then the eastern boundary along the tree line, then north and south. Shiro monitors the construction from inside the fence as it goes up, moving along the sections that are already complete. I notice early on that he doesn't distribute his attention evenly. He spends more time at certain points than others, circling back to the same locations even when nothing is there. The second time I see him do this, I mark the locations on the perimeter diagram. Later, looking at the diagram, I realize each point he keeps returning to is a low spot, a corner, or a gap in sightline coverage. He isn't patrolling randomly. He's checking what needs checking. I mention this to no one, but I start treating his circuits as a supplementary sensor. Level 36 delivers the defense towers. 4 units, modular construction, designed to mount at corner positions on the fence perimeter, integrated rotary weapon system, night vision targeting, remote operation capability. The delivery note describes them as the centerpiece of the Level 36 package. I read the operational specifications. Defense tower system, power requirements. Autonomous operation requires sustained electrical supply of 15 kilowatts minimum. Below this threshold, towers will not initialize. Current registered generator output, 8 kilowatts. Note: power infrastructure upgrade is the responsibility of the shelter operator. The system does not supply fuel or power generation equipment. 8 kilowatts. We need 15. The second-hand diesel generator I bought before the apocalypse, the one Goro fixed and called adequate, is running near its ceiling, just handling the lighting, the boiler controls, the ventilation system, the camera feeds, and Takashi's radio equipment. There's no headroom. The towers are sitting in their crates and will stay there until I solve a power problem. The system has no interest in solving for me. I think back through everything I've been told since people started arriving. Hayashi, when he and Rika first came in, he talked about their route, where they'd come from, what they'd passed. He mentioned a factory complex about 4 kilometers northeast, abandoned, that still had equipment inside because whoever left didn't have time or transport to take it. He specifically said they'd seen a large generator unit through a broken window. I find Hayashi in the workshop. The factory you mentioned when you arrived, the generator you saw, what size was it? He thinks. Industrial. The housing was yellow. That's a commercial rental unit, usually big enough that I couldn't see the top of it clearly through the window. Commercial rental units in that size range run 30 to 50 kilowatts. Even if it's damaged, even if it's only partially functional, 15 kilowatts is achievable. I find Ken and Takashi. They take the van and a trailer and come back in 3 hours. The generator on the trailer is large enough that getting it through the warehouse door requires removing the door frame, which Goro does with the expression of a man who is professionally offended but understands why. The unit is an industrial diesel, 40 kilowatts rated output, with a fuel tank that takes 200 liters. It's been sitting in an unheated factory for weeks, and the startup is rough. Takashi spends an hour on the electrical connections, and Goro replaces 2 components from the part stock before it will run cleanly. When it stabilizes, the power output display reads 38 kilowatts. Goro looks at it, then at Ken and Takashi, then at me. "Where did you know to look?" he asks. "Hayashi told me when he arrived. I filed it." You file everything. Everything that might be useful later usually is. He considers this, decides it's not worth arguing with, goes to start mounting the tower base units. The towers go up over 2 days. Ken oversees the mounting. He's been waiting for this since level 29, and he works with the focused intensity of someone finally doing the job they were built for. The 4 units rise at the corners of the fence perimeter, each one swiveling smoothly through its test range, the targeting system picking up thermal signatures with a clarity that makes the old camera feeds look primitive. When all 4 are online and tested, Ken sits down at the control console Takashi has set up in the main monitoring room. 4 screens, 1 per tower, central override, manual targeting option alongside the automated response system. He sits there for a moment, doesn't say anything. For the first time since he arrived, he looks like he's exactly where he should be. I don't mention it. Some things don't need to be said. Keep them on standby, I tell him. Not active autonomous mode yet. I want manual authorization required before any tower fires. That slows response time. I know. We're not ready to explain automatic weapons fire to anyone who might still be listening officially, and I don't want a deer triggering a tower at 3 in the morning. He accepts this with the slight grimace of someone who thinks I'm being overly careful but can't prove it yet. Levels 37 through 40 fill in the gaps. Reinforced gate mechanism. Secondary interior barrier. A second checkpoint between the outer fence and the building entrance. A dead zone that anyone who gets through the outer fence has to cross before reaching the doors. Motion sensors along the fence interior. Takashi integrates everything into the monitoring station until the main room looks like something between a construction site office and a military operations post. 3 more people arrive during this period. A couple in their 50s named Ozawa and his wife, and a young man named Daisuke, who shows up alone and doesn't say much about where he came from. All 3 pass the standard evaluation. All 3 are registered. The weapons allocation expands accordingly. 10 residents now, plus Shiro. The probe comes on a night when the temperature is -71. Shiro wakes first. Not the low-frequency assessment sound, an actual bark short and sharp, from the sleeping area where he's been resting near the base of my door. By the time I reach the monitor room, Takashi is already there, pointing at camera 7. 6 figures, northeast corner of the outer fence, the section that was chain link until 2 weeks ago now, solid steel panel. They know this section was weak before. They don't know it isn't anymore. 4 of them are working on the fence joint, looking for the panel gap that used to be there. 2 are standing back, watching. The towers? Ken is behind me. Hand already on the console. No. I move to the intercom panel, external speaker system that Takashi mounted on the fence line for exactly this kind of situation. Not yet. I key the external speaker. You're in camera coverage. My voice goes out through the fence speakers, flat and clear in the cold. We have rifles on you from 2 positions. Leave the way you came. 4 of the 6. Stop immediately. The 2 in back take a step backward. 2 at the fence continue working. Either they don't believe me or they've been told to press through a bluff. I look at Ken. He's already on the tower manual control. Tower 2, northeast coverage. I nod. The burst hits the ground 2 meters in front of the fence, snow and frozen dirt. The sound in -71 air is very sharp and very clear. All 6 figures turn and run. We watch them on the cameras until they're off the edge of the feed range, heading northeast toward the highway. Goro is in the doorway of the monitor room. He watches the empty camera frame for a moment. You had clear shots on all 6, he says. Yes. Why didn't you take them? Because Kazuma sent 6 people expecting to find a weak fence and a scared group. 6 people will come back and report that the fence is solid. There are cameras, there are weapons, and whoever is inside responded fast and controlled the engagement without panicking. I turn off the speaker system. That report changes Kazuma's calculation. He was planning for a small operation. Now he has to plan for something larger. That takes time, and time is what we're still building with. Goro is quiet for a moment. And if he decides larger is worth it, then we'll have built more by the time he gets here. He nods slowly and goes back to bed. Not because he's satisfied, because the logic holds, and he's practical enough to accept logic, even when it doesn't feel like enough. Levels 41 through 50 bring a change I notice before Goro mentions it. The system shifts from delivering raw materials to delivering prefabricated components, wall sections that arrive already assembled, floor modules that lock together, rather than requiring framing from scratch. Equipment housings that mount in an hour instead of a day. The labor requirement per level drops significantly. What used to take 3 days of work takes 1. Goro stands in the middle of a delivery on level 44, looking at a prefabricated room module that arrived in 4 pieces and will become a fully insulated secondary storage room after about 90 minutes of assembly. It's easier, he says. Yes, but you still need to know where it goes, how it connects to what's already there. Whether the sequence makes sense, that's still your job. He nods. Good. He picks up the first module section. I was worried I was becoming decorative. By level 50, the building looks nothing like the derelict warehouse I bought with a discounted listing price and thin optimism. 2 floors fully partitioned and insulated. Basement operational as boiler room and secondary storage. Greenhouse and farm producing on schedule. Full perimeter fence with 4 active defense towers. Camera coverage on every approach. A monitoring station that runs around the clock. Mechanical ventilation, maintaining clean air at -75 outside. I walk the perimeter one evening, inside the fence, Shiro making his rounds beside me, and do the count I started doing at level 5. 10 people, enough food for 2 months at current consumption, with greenhouse production extending that estimate weekly, firewood for 2 months in the basement. Diesel for the industrial generator through level 60 at least. 4 defense towers, manual authorization, trained operator, 12 cameras, all weapons registered. Shiro stops at the northeast corner, the spot he always checks, where the fence panel joins. He sniffs the base of the post, confirms something I can't sense. Moves on. I know, I say to him. They'll come back. He doesn't disagree. Resources level 50. 10 residents plus Shiro. Full perimeter fence complete. 4 defense towers active. Manual mode. Industrial generator 38 kilowatts output. Boiler fuel 2 months. Food supply 2 months and growing. Prefabricated assembly phase active from level 41 onward. Kazuma's 6-person probe repelled. Expected escalation incoming. 3 weeks after level 50, the shelter runs on its own rhythm. Nana does a medical check on every resident every 4 days. Blood pressure, temperature, hydration, hands and feet for early frostbite signs in anyone who's been outside. She runs the greenhouse on a light schedule she adjusted herself, ignoring the original instruction sheet after the second week, because the plants were telling her more than the paper was. The seedlings she's nursing in the secondary trays will be producing in another 10 days. Goro checks the boiler twice daily, at 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening, the same way a ship's engineer checks the engine room, not because he expects problems, but because the value of a check comes from its consistency. He keeps a log in a small notebook he carries in his jacket pocket. Temperature readings, pressure, fuel consumption, numbers that mean nothing individually and everything as a trend. Ken runs the monitoring station in 12-hour blocks, handing off to Takashi at midnight. He's developed a rotation pattern for the towers. Not random, not fixed, something in between that he calculated to minimize predictability for anyone watching from outside. He doesn't explain his reasoning unless asked. I asked once he showed me the calculation. It was correct. Takashi sleeps less than anyone, which concerns Nana and doesn't seem to concern him. He runs the radio intercept equipment in parallel with the camera monitoring, keeps logs of everything he hears on Kazuma's frequency, and has started building a map of the Marauder grid system based on sector references in intercepted transmissions. The map is getting detailed. Saki works the kitchen. She learned the inventory system within 2 days, cooks on a rotation that keeps variety in the diet without wasting anything, and is quiet and efficient in a way that could read as guilt or could read as focus. I haven't decided which. The shelter works. 11 people, 1 dog, minus 78 outside, and everything inside functions because everyone does their part. That's what I built it for. Takashi comes to find me on a Tuesday morning. He doesn't say anything immediately. He sits down at the monitoring workbench, pulls up a secondary display I haven't seen before, and turns it toward me. She's been transmitting twice a day, he says. Once around noon, once around 2 in the morning. Short bursts, low power. The signal is weak enough that I almost didn't catch it. It's designed to look like equipment noise on the frequency band. I look at the display. Signal traces, timestamps, duration, regular, consistent, intentional. How long have you known? 4 days. I wanted to be sure before I came to you. Can you read it? Partially. It's a simple cipher, not sophisticated, just consistent. I've broken about 60%. He pulls up the decoded content. Coordinates for this building. Floor plan of the ground level. Not perfect. She got a few room positions wrong, but close enough. Generator location. Ken's shift timing. I read through the decoded fragments. The coordinates are accurate to within 20 meters. The floor plan has our kitchen in the right place. The storage room. The monitoring station. The generator is listed at its old location. The position it was in before I moved it last week as part of the level 47 reconfiguration. Ryu, I say. It's at the bottom of the most recent decoded fragment. Ryu standing by, waiting for signal. I cross-reference the name against the intercept logs from Kazuma's frequency. Takashi says he pulls up another window. Ryu appears in 3 separate transmissions from Umeda Station over the past 2 weeks, always in the context of external operations. He's not running anything inside. He coordinates assets in the field. External agent, Saki, is his asset inside. I sit with this for a moment, not because I'm surprised. Nana told me to be careful and she was right, and Shiro has been sleeping lightly whenever Saki moves at night, which I noticed a week ago and filed without acting on. I'm sitting with it because the decision that comes next matters, and I want to make it correctly. Expelling her now is the clean option. Simple, immediate, removes the leak, but Ryu is waiting for a signal. If Saki disappears from transmissions, Ryu reports the channel is burned, and Kazuma adjusts his approach without us learning anything about what that approach was going to be. We lose intelligence and gain nothing except the removal of one person who was already compromised. The other option is more work. I call Goro and Nana into the workshop section after dinner. When Saki is in the kitchen doing the post-meal inventory count she does every evening, I show them what Takashi found. Goro reads the decoded fragments without expression. Nana reads them and her face does something complicated that settles into the same stillness she uses when she's making a clinical decision. You're not going to expel her, Goro says. Not a question, no. Then what? She's been mapping the generator location. The real location moved at level 47. She doesn't know that. She has Ken's shift timing as it was 2 weeks ago. I'm going to change the rotation starting tomorrow. The floor plan she transmitted has 3 rooms in the wrong position. I lay out Takashi's map next to Saki's transmitted version. I'm going to make sure everything she sees from now on matches what she already sent. The generator is in the old location as far as she's concerned. Ken's shift ends at midnight as far as she's concerned. The northeast interior corridor connects to the armory as far as she's concerned. It doesn't. Nana says, no, it connects to the secondary but if someone comes through the northeast entry point expecting to reach the armory and find storage crates instead, they lose 30 seconds of orientation in the wrong room. I look at them both. 30 seconds matters. Goro is quiet for a moment. You're feeding her a map with wrong turns in it. I'm feeding her the map she already has, with a few corrections that happen to be incorrect. She won't notice because she'll see what she expects to see. He thinks about this the way he thinks about structural problems, checking the load-bearing points, looking for where it fails. If she figures out she's been caught, he says finally, Nana finishes the sentence. She panics and signals early. She won't figure it out, I say. Everything looks normal. I'm not changing her routine, not changing how anyone treats her, not changing anything visible. The only things that change are the ones she can't directly observe: the generator location, the shift rotation, the corridor connection. She'll transmit what she sees, and what she sees will be what I want Ryu to believe. Nana looks at me for a moment. You've been thinking about this since she arrived. I don't answer that directly. Kitchen inventory she does every evening. She's been counting the food stock and transmitting estimated quantities. Starting tomorrow, the backup supply in the basement is logged under a different category in the inventory system. What she counts on the main floor represents about 40% of total stock. Ryu will think we're running lower than we are. Goro nods slowly. Once. The nod he gives when he's decided something is structurally sound. What about the rest of us, Nana asks. The others who don't know. They don't need to. They behave normally because they are normal. If everyone except the three of us knew, one of them would change something small, the way they look at her, a hesitation in conversation. She'd notice. She's not careless. Nana accepts this. She doesn't like it entirely, but she accepts the logic. She goes back to the greenhouse. Goro goes to check the boiler log. I stay in the workshop and look at Takashi's map, the real one, overlaid with the version Saki has been transmitting. Ryu is going to come through a gap that isn't there anymore, turn toward an armory that isn't where he thinks it is, and find the generator at a location that hasn't been accurate for 2 weeks. He'll come because he's been told the timing is right and the entry point is weak. He'll come expecting the shelter Saki described in her first week. He'll find a different building entirely. That night, Shiro doesn't sleep outside my door. He's in the corridor near the kitchen, lying with his head on his paws, facing Saki's room. His eyes are open. I step over him on my way back from the monitoring check. Crouched down for a moment, he looks up at me without moving his head. I know, I say quietly. We wait. He closes his eyes. Doesn't move from the spot. The signal goes out at 11:47 p.m. Takashi shows me the transmission log in real time, a short burst on Saki's frequency, the same cipher she's been using for 3 weeks. He decodes it in under a minute. The message is brief. Tonight, 2 o'clock. East Gap. Generator in right wing. Ken off post at 0200. All of it false. The East Gap was sealed at level 35. The generator hasn't been in the right wing since level 47. Ken's shift doesn't end at 2, it ends at midnight, and Daisuke takes over, which Saki has never seen, because the handoff happens in the monitoring room and she has no reason to be there at midnight. I read the transmission and set the tablet down. How many do you think? Takashi asks. Enough to take a building they think is lightly defended. 8, maybe 10. He nods and starts adjusting the camera feeds, pulling camera 8 to the main display, the northeast exterior, the section of fence where the gap used to be, where a narrow dead-end corridor between the outer fence and the secondary barrier runs for about 12 meters before hitting a sealed wall. 12 meters of enclosed space, one entry point, one exit point controlled by us. I go through the building and wake the people who need to be awake. Goro, Ken, Nana. I tell them what's happening in 4 sentences. Goro goes to the boiler room and stays there. His job tonight is to keep the building systems running, regardless of anything happening outside. Nana sets up the medical kit in the main corridor. Ken takes the manual tower controls and sets towers 2 and 3 to standby, covering the northeast approach and the fence exterior. I go to Takashi's station and wait. At 1:53 a.m., camera 8 picks up movement on the road east of the fence. 8 figures. Moving in pairs, staggered formation, someone with field experience arranged that. They're dressed for the cold but not for extended exposure at -80. They're planning on being inside within minutes of breach. They reach the fence at the northeast corner and start working the panel joint, the spot where, according to Saki's floor plan, the gap should be. There is no gap. There hasn't been one for weeks. But the panel at that location was installed with a slightly different fastener pattern than the surrounding sections. Deliberate, my instruction to Ken during installation. So it looks different under close examination. It looks like it might give. It takes them 4 minutes to work through the modified fasteners. The panel swings inward. They file in. Takashi has his hand on the gate control before the last one clears the opening. I watch camera 8. All 8 figures are in the dead-end corridor, moving toward the interior wall that should, according to their information, open into the right wing of the building. It doesn't open anywhere. It's a wall. Now, I say. The entry panel swings shut behind them. Magnetic lock engages. The secondary barrier at the far end, which they haven't reached yet, locks simultaneously. 8 people in a 12-meter corridor between 2 locked steel barriers open to the sky. The temperature in that corridor is -80 degrees Celsius. I cut the exterior lights. In the dark and the cold, it takes about 15 seconds before the shouting starts. The voice that rises above the others is controlled, even now angry, but not panicking, which tells me something about him before I've seen his face. He's giving orders to the others, trying to organize them, which is more useful than screaming, but doesn't change the geometry of the situation. I key the external speaker. Ryu. The shouting stops. Saki told me about you before any of this started. She thought I wasn't listening. I keep my voice level, not cold, not satisfied, just factual. I want you to take a message back to Kazuma. Tell him the next time he sends people here, The towers are on autonomous mode. There won't be a conversation. Silence from the corridor, -80 degrees. The thermal suits they're wearing are good for sustained cold, but not for standing still in open air at this temperature. The math on survivability starts moving fast after the 5-minute mark. I watch the timer on Takashi's display. At 8 minutes, I nod to him. The entry panel unlocks. They come out fast, the instinct to move overriding everything else. 2 of them are being supported by others, not walking independently. Frostbite on exposed skin. One of them holding his hands against his chest in a way that suggests the fingers. All 8 alive. I'm standing at the interior gate with 8 chemical heat packs. I pass them through the fence bars one at a time. Torso and hands first, I say. The shopping center on the Higashi Road is 4 kilometers. Move and you'll generate enough heat to make it. Ryu is the last one to take a heat pack. He looks at me through the fence bars. I look at him. He's younger than I expected, late 20s, a face that under other circumstances would look ordinary. Right now it looks like someone recalculating everything they thought they knew about the night. He takes the heat pack, doesn't say anything, turns and follows the others toward the road. I watch them on camera until they clear the fence perimeter. Then I go inside. Saki is in the corridor outside the kitchen. She's been awake. She was awake when it started, which means she knew the timing and was listening for the outcome. She's standing with her arms at her sides and her face is doing the same work it did the night she arrived at the gate, processing too many things at once and not landing on any of them. I stop in front of her. You're leaving, I say. Same terms as anyone I've asked to leave. Thermal suit, 3 days of rations, your personal items. The shopping center on the Higashi Road is 4 kilometers east. It's occupied, which you probably know. You'll survive if you move. It's -80 outside. I know that's why you're getting the suit. I look at her steadily. I don't kill people. That's not what this is. She's quiet for a moment. What about Ryu? He's already on the road. He has heat packs. Something moves across her face. She nods once, slowly, and goes to her room to get her things. I walk her to the main gate. It's the same gate I opened for her when she arrived. Same hinges, same lock mechanism, same camera, 2 overhead that I was watching when she came down the access road out of the dark. She's dressed now in the thermal suit, pack over one shoulder, and she stops in the gateway and turns back. You knew everything, she says. From the start, about me and Ryu, about what was going to happen. Yes, she looks at me for a moment. The wind coming through the open gate is -80 and neither of us reacts to it. You died because of us, she says. It's not a question and it's not quite an accusation. It's a statement she's been building towards since she arrived and is finally saying out loud. Yes, and you still let me in. Everyone gets one chance. I hold her gaze. You used yours to set a trap. That's your choice. Now you leave. She searches my face for something. Anger would be easier to understand than this. I think the flatness that isn't coldness but isn't forgiveness either. Just a clean, accurate accounting of what happened and what happens next. She doesn't find what she's looking for because it isn't there. Go, I say. Move fast and you'll stay warm enough. She turns and walks. I watch her on the camera feed. Camera 2, the access road. Her figure getting smaller against the white of the frozen ground. She doesn't look back. She walks at a pace that's fast without running. The pace of someone who has accepted the situation and is applying themselves to surviving it. At the edge of the camera's range, she turns east toward the Higashi Road. Then she's gone. Shiro is sitting beside me at the gate. He watches the empty access road for a moment after she's out of the camera frame. His ears are forward and his eyes are steady, the posture of an animal that has finished assessing something and reached a conclusion. Then he turns away from the gate and sits down next to me, facing the building. Done. What's outside is outside. What's inside needs looking after. I close the gate and lock it. Yeah, I say. We go back inside. In the morning, I redistribute Saki's registered items, reallocate her food portion to the general stock, and update the resident count in the system. 10 residents, plus Shiro. I update the armory registration, remove Saki's allocation. She was never registered for a weapon, but the system tracks all residents and the log needs to be accurate. Then I sit down with Takashi's intercept map and look at the sector grid he's been building. Ryu reached the shopping center, or he didn't. Either way, he has a message for Kazuma. Kazuma will hear that the trap worked in reverse, that the building knew he was coming, that the entry point was prepared, that someone inside was running a counter-operation with clean execution, and that the next approach will need to be something different, something larger, something that doesn't rely on a single agent and a single gap in a fence. That's the message I wanted him to receive. Now I have whatever time it takes him to plan something larger. Resources, level 50. 10 residents, plus Shiro. Ryu's probe neutralized, 8 people, 0 casualties. Message delivered. Saki expelled. Kazuma has full confirmation that the facility is hardened and alert. Expect escalation. The clock on the next problem has started. 3 days after Ryu's group walked away from the gate, Takashi intercepts a transmission that's different from the others. Not a sector report, not a logistics update. A single short message on a frequency they don't usually use for operational coordination, closer to a command channel, the kind of traffic that gets handled at a different level. Kazuma moving to location personally. Purpose, negotiation. Repeat, not a raid. Takashi reads it to me twice. I look at the timestamp, sent 40 minutes ago. How far is the Umeda station from here? About 18 kilometers by road, 40 minutes at normal driving speed. He pauses. Less if the roads are clear. The roads are clear, have been for weeks. Wake, Ken, I say. Tell Goro to stay at the boiler and not come out regardless of what he hears. Tell Nana the same. Stay inside. Doors closed. He arrives on foot. Camera 2 picks him up at the end of the access road, a single figure, walking at a deliberate pace. No vehicle visible behind him. When he reaches the gate, he stops and looks up at the camera directly, which tells me he already knew it was there. He's alone, no weapons visible, medium height, slightly built, a face that looks like it's spent a long time making calculations and has gotten good at it. 40, maybe 42. He looks like someone who runs logistics for a company that doesn't officially exist. I go to the gate. Ken is 2 steps behind me, rifle in hand, not trying to hide it. I open the gate but don't step back. You came alone. I brought the number of people appropriate for a conversation, he says. His voice matches the radio, the same calibrated calm. Kazuma, I know who you are. He looks past me into the yard, taking in what's visible, the fence, the building exterior, the tower at the northeast corner. His eyes move the way someone moves a camera. Systematic, not reactive. He's building a picture. May I come in? I step back. He walks the yard slowly, hands visible, the practiced body language of someone who wants to be readable. He looks at the fence sections, the ground anchors for the anti-vehicle barriers that aren't installed yet, the tower mounting hardware. He's reading the build sequence the way Goro reads structural work, seeing what was done in what order, inferring what comes next. Level 52, he says, still looking at the tower. I don't answer. My people have taken 3 shelters with active systems. The highest any of them reached before we arrived was level 31. The operators had been working for the same duration you have. He turns to face me. You're operating differently than they were. What do you want? He looks around the yard one more time, then brings his attention fully to me. An arrangement that doesn't require either of us to spend resources on conflict. He says it the way someone states an arithmetic fact. Your facility produces and stores. My group provides external security and mobility. 20% of production, shared access to logistics routes, mutual non-interference. That's the same offer you made on the radio. The radio offer was a starting position. This conversation is different. I'm here because what happened 3 nights ago told me something about how you operate. And what it told me is that a direct approach to this facility would be expensive. I don't spend resources unnecessarily. Ken hasn't moved from his position 2 meters behind me. Kazuma is aware of him. Hasn't looked at him since the first second. You took 3 shelters, I say. Yes. People were living in them. People are still living in them, under my structure. He says this without any particular emphasis, as if it's a logistical clarification rather than a moral one. The operators of those facilities couldn't defend what they had. I could. The people inside are alive because of that calculation, not despite it. And if they'd been able to defend themselves, then I would be having this conversation with them instead. A pause as I'm having it with you. The logic is coherent. That's the most unsettling thing about him. Not that he's wrong, but that his framework is internally consistent and applied without apparent gaps. He assesses capability, negotiates with the capable, absorbs the incapable. It's a system. He runs it efficiently. I look at him for a moment. 3 days. I say I'll give you an answer in 3 days. He nods once. Doesn't push, turns and walks back to the gate, which Ken opens without being asked. At the gate he pauses without turning around. The ground anchor work on your interior. You're planning anti-vehicle barriers. That's a reasonable next step. He walks out. The gate closes. Goro is in the workshop when I come back in. He was supposed to stay at the boiler. He's been standing at the workshop window, which has a partial sightline to the yard. Well, he says, he's offering a partnership, production and storage here, military force from Umeda. He frames it as mutual benefit. Goro is quiet for a moment. Is it? In the short term, possibly? He has 100 people and a vehicle we can't stop at our current level. His external presence would deter smaller groups. I sit down at the workbench. In the medium term, we become dependent on an arrangement he controls. He decides when to renegotiate. He decides what 20% means in practice. At some point, the arrangement and the takeover become indistinguishable. So no, but not yet. I look at the level 56 unlock I've been planning toward for 2 weeks. He'll give us 3 days because he said he would, and because he's watching what we do with them. He wants to see if we panic, accelerate construction, try to communicate with other groups. Any of those things tells him something. Goro crosses his arms. He won't wait the full 3 days. No, he'll push on day 2 to see how we respond under pressure. That's also information for him. I stand up, which means we have roughly 36 hours before this conversation moves to the next phase. I need everyone together. I call all 10 residents into the main room. I tell them everything, not a summary, everything. Kazuma's group, the Umeda station, the sector grid Takashi has been mapping, the 3 shelters already taken, the probe 3 nights ago, tonight's meeting. I tell them what I think Kazuma's timeline is and what I think his actual objective is. I tell them the answer is no, and I tell them what no means in practical terms. Nobody speaks for a moment after I finish. Then Ozawa, the quiet man in his 50s who has been here since level 40 and has never once asked me what the plan is, says, "What do you need us to do?" That's the whole conversation. Levels 53 through 55 go to the secondary interior barrier, a second defensive line between the outer fence and the building entrance, turning the approach into a channeled corridor that funnels anyone who breaches the fence into a killing ground with no lateral movement. Ken designs the layout. Goro builds it. Daisuke and Hayashi handle material placement under Goro's direction. Level 56 delivers the anti-vehicle barrier system. I've been working toward this specific unlock for 2 weeks, sequencing the builds to reach it before Kazuma's patience runs out. The delivery is substantial. 18 heavy steel barrier units, each weighing several hundred kilograms, designed to be set in concrete foundations and stop a vehicle at speed. I read the installation specifications. Anti-vehicle barrier system, annihilation. Standard installation requires poured concrete foundation. Minimum depth 30 centimeters, cure time 48 hours at temperatures above 5 degrees Celsius. External temperature 81 degrees Celsius. Note, concrete will not cure correctly at this temperature. Goro is reading over my shoulder. Concrete at -81, he says. It'll flash freeze wrong. The crystalline structure won't form correctly. Looks solid, fails under load. I know. I scroll down through the full specification document. The system is thorough. It documents the standard installation and 3 alternative methods. The third alternative, anchor mount installation, is approved where frozen ground depth exceeds 40 centimeters. Steel anchor bolts, minimum grade 8.8, driven to minimum 60 centimeters depth. Load rating equivalent to concrete foundation at approved frozen ground depths. I show Goro, he reads it. Goes to the exterior door, opens it 6 inches. A blast of -81 air. He looks down at the ground. The frost line is visible even from the threshold. The ground is iron-hard and pale to a depth that by any reasonable estimate extends well past 40 centimeters. He closes the door. 1.5 meters minimum, he says. Ground's been frozen solid for 6 weeks. Can you drive the anchors? Hydraulic driver, grade 8.8 bolts, pre-drilled pilot holes. He's already making a list in his head. Yes, the barriers go in over 2 days. Ken and Goro work the exterior in thermal suits, drilling pilot holes, driving anchors, mounting the steel units in the approach lane outside the main gate and at the 2 secondary access points. The barriers sit low and heavy and are not going anywhere. The anchor bolts are set into frozen ground that is, for practical purposes, more reliable than cured concrete would have been at the correct temperature. When the last unit is in place, Goro stands back and looks at the approach lane. A vehicle hits that at speed, he says. The vehicle loses. That's the intention. He nods, goes inside. On the second day, the radio activates. Kazuma's voice, calm as always. You're taking too long to think. I'm at the monitoring station. Takashi is beside me, already recording. I look at the timestamp, 41 hours since he left the yard. Not 3 days, not even 2. I key the transmitter. No, single word. I release the key. The frequency stays open for a long moment, longer than the usual pause between transmissions, long enough that I can hear the background noise of wherever he's broadcasting from. Then, understood. The frequency closes. Goro is in the doorway. He heard both transmissions from the corridor. That's it, he says? That's it for tonight. I pull up the full camera feed across all 12 units. The approaches are empty. The barriers are in place. The towers are on standby. He said, understood, not finished. There's a difference. I update the system log. Level 58, 12 residents, anti-vehicle barriers installed on anchor mounts, full weapons registration complete for all residents, firewood reserve extended to 3 months, towers on standby, manual authorization. Outside, -83, silent. The answer is no. He understood the answer is no. Everything that comes next will come from that understanding. Resources, level 58, 12 residents plus Shiro, anti-vehicle barriers installed and load tested. Secondary interior barrier complete. Full armory registration across all residents. Firewood, 3 months. Industrial generator operational, 4 towers on standby. Kazuma's response to refusal, pending. The motion sensors trigger at 2:14 a.m. Not one zone 4 simultaneously, spread across the northern and eastern approach corridors. Takashi is at the monitoring station before the alert sound finishes. I'm behind him in 15 seconds. Ken right behind me. The camera feeds show darkness and distance. Then the thermal overlay comes on and the darkness resolves into shapes. Column, Ken says. He's already at the tower console. Hands moving across the controls. 90 to 100 personnel. Spread formation. 60-meter front. And he stops for 1 second. Armored vehicle at the head. Tracked. The BRT, the one Hayashi mentioned when he first arrived. The one I've been planning for since level 56. Shiro is at my feet. Not barking. A continuous low sound from somewhere in his chest. Not warning. Not aggression. The sound of an animal that has already decided something is wrong and is waiting for the decision about what to do next. The system interface opens without me touching it. Level 58, notification. Perimeter breach detected, multiple approach vectors. Unlocked. Autonomous tower mode upon first perimeter breach. In autonomous mode, Towers will engage confirmed hostile targets without manual authorization. Current tower status. Stand-by. Manual authorization required. I read it. Close the interface. Manual stays manual. Autonomous mode means the towers make decisions. I make decisions. The column stops at 600 meters. Long enough range that the cameras are working hard to resolve detail. I count the thermal signatures on the feed. Ken's count was right, 90 to 100. Arranged in a formation that isn't a mob, isn't improvised, staggered lines, flanking elements at both edges. Someone with military background organized this, and the people in it have been told what to do. The radio activates on our frequency. Good work on the barriers. Kazuma's voice, through the external speaker system he's figured out how to reach. I mean that sincerely. The anchor mount solution at -80 is not something most people would have thought of. Last offer, open the gates, transfer system administration to shared control. Everyone inside keeps their position and their lives. You have 2 minutes. I look around the room. Goro is standing against the wall with his hands at his sides. At some point in the last 10 seconds, he picked up the old pipe wrench he keeps on the workbench. Not a weapon. Not really. Just the tool his hand reached for on instinct. He's holding it loosely, not looking at it. Nana is at the medical station in the corridor doorway. Her kit open and organized in the order she'll need it. She's been there since the sensors triggered. She doesn't look at me. She's already past the point of waiting for reassurance. Ken's fingers are on the manual targeting controls. Tower 2, covering the column's right flank. He hasn't looked away from the screen since he sat down. Takashi is typing. I look at his secondary display, a script. Running, building itself line by line. Signal jamming protocol targeted at Umida's command frequency. Not deployed yet. Waiting, Shiro barks. Once, short, clear, I pick up the transmitter. Kazuma, I hold the key down and speak the way I've been thinking for the last 2 minutes. Not fast, not loud, just accurate. You took the subway station? That was smart, underground, protected, central location, good thinking, a pause. But you came to someone who built a functioning fortress out of an abandoned warehouse in 30 days at -80, with no construction experience and a used generator. I was a cashier at a supermarket 2 months ago. I look at the camera feed, the column, the vehicle, the formation. I'm not that anymore, and kings don't open the door for uninvited guests. I release the key. 4 seconds of silence on the frequency. Then, from the column's position, a single word, fire. The BRT moves forward. It covers 400 meters in under a minute, accelerating toward the main gate approach. Ken tracks it on Tower 1's targeting, then stops tracking because the vehicle hits the first barrier rank at speed and the barriers hold. The BRT lurches, recovers, pushes. The anchor mount steel doesn't move. The vehicle stops. The first shots hit the outer gate. Small arms concentrated on the lock mechanism. Tower 2 opens up on the column's right flank. Ken, manual controlled bursts at ground level, not at bodies. Warning fire. The same logic as the probe 3 nights ago, except this time the column doesn't stop and turn around. They were briefed for this. They knew there would be return fire. The system interface opens again. 2 additional shelters with active systems detected. Locations: 28 kilometers northeast, 41 kilometers north. Status: under assault. Assessment: coordinated simultaneous attack, 3 targets. I read it once. 3 targets. All at the same time. Kazuma didn't come here because this is the priority. He came here because he's hitting everything at once, splitting defensive attention, preventing any one facility from supporting the others. It's the correct tactical decision. He thought it through. Takashi, running, he says. The script is already deployed. Umeda's command frequency is filling with noise, clean interference that looks like equipment failure rather than jamming. Kazuma's column can still communicate internally, but the coordination traffic back to the station is gone. How long does that hold? Until they switch to a backup frequency. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 30 if they didn't plan for it. 10 minutes of isolation from their command structure. Tower 3 picks up movement on the north approach, a flanking element, 20 people trying to reach the fence line while the main column holds our attention at the gate. Ken splits his focus across 2 screens without being asked. Outside, -86, the column at the gate, flankers on the north. BRT stopped against barriers that were installed by 2 men in thermal suits 2 days ago, mounted in frozen ground with grade 8.8 anchor bolts because concrete doesn't cure at this temperature, and the system specification document had 3 alternative methods, and I read all of them. Inside 12 people, 4 towers, barriers holding jamming active. Shiro moves to the door of the monitoring room and faces it. Not the cameras, the actual door, as if something in him has shifted from watching to being ready. The gate takes another burst, holds. The assault has begun and the building is still standing, and there are 42 levels left to build. The north flank is the first real problem. Ken splits his attention across Tower 2 and Tower 3 simultaneously. Main column at the gate on one screen, 20 flankers pushing toward the north fence line on the other. He handles both for about 11 minutes before the flankers find the gap. Not a structural gap. A coverage gap, a 12-meter section of north fence where Tower 3's rotation arc has a 3-second blind spot at the far edge of its sweep. Ken mapped it himself when he set the patrol pattern. He knows exactly where it is, but he has 90 people at the front gate and 20 on the north side in 2 hands. 3 of the flankers get through the fence before Tower 3 comes back around. Takashi sees them on camera 8. 3 inside the outer perimeter, moving toward the secondary barrier. Ken, north interior, I say. He transfers Tower 3 to autonomous on the north exterior, the first time I've allowed it tonight, covering the fence line he can't watch manually, and swings Camera 8's feed to his primary screen. The 3 figures inside are moving fast, using the dead space between the outer fence and the secondary barrier. They're heading for the gap in the secondary barrier's coverage, which they must have been briefed on. They weren't briefed on Shiro. The dog moves before I can say anything. He was at the monitoring room door, then he isn't. I hear him in the corridor, then the exterior sound insulation takes over and I don't hear anything for 40 seconds. Then Shiro is back in the doorway, a cut above his left eye bleeding into his fur. He shakes his head once, looks at me, and moves to his position at my feet. Camera 8, I say. 3 figures, down, not dead, moving, but not moving toward anything. Shiro bought enough time for the secondary barrier's lock to engage automatically. They're in the dead zone, contained. Nana, I say into the corridor intercom. I see him, she says. She's already moving. At the gate, the BRT makes a second run at the barriers. The driver has figured out that straight-on impact isn't working and tries to angle the vehicle to catch the edge of the barrier rank, where the anchor spacing is wider. It's a reasonable idea. It gets the vehicle 2 meters further than the first attempt before the corner barrier catches the track housing, and the BRT stops again. Engine grinding. Tower 1 puts a burst into the vehicle's optical systems. Ken, precise, not trying to kill the crew, trying to blind the driver. The BRT reverses, slowly. Outside on the main column, Takashi's jamming has been running for 19 minutes. At minute 22, the frequency traffic changes. Kazuma's people have switched to a backup channel. The jamming script catches it in 40 seconds and extends coverage. But those 40 seconds of open communication produced orders I can see being executed. The column is consolidating, pulling the flankers back, tightening the formation. That's a withdrawal pattern, not an assault pattern. He's regrouping, Ken says. He's doing the math. I say, column stalled, BRT stopped, flankers pulled back. He came with a plan. And the plan ran into barriers that shouldn't have been possible at this temperature. He's reassessing, or he's repositioning for a second push. Watch the BRT. The armored vehicle reverses another 10 meters, stops. Its main weapon stays cold. He never intended to level the building, just to breach the gate. The gate hasn't breached. At 28 minutes of assault, with his communications disrupted and his 3 primary objectives unfulfilled, Kazuma makes the decision I knew he'd eventually make. The column begins moving east. Away from the gate, it takes 11 minutes for them to clear the camera range. The 3 contained figures in the secondary dead zone are still there. Kazuma left them. Either he doesn't know they're pinned, or he made a calculation that going back for 3 people wasn't worth extending the engagement. Ken sits back from the console. The monitoring room is quiet except for the ventilation hum and Nana working on Shiro in the corridor behind us. We do damage assessment at first light. The outer fence took the worst of it. The north breach where the flankers got through has a 2-meter gap. The panel was forced, the post bent at the base. Repairable, but not quickly. The gate itself held, but the lock mechanism is damaged. It will close, but the motorized system is gone. Manual bolt only. Tower 1 is functional. Tower 3 has a targeting sensor issue from a round that clipped the housing during the flanker exchange. It operates, but the accuracy is degraded. The boiler exhaust stack on the east wall took a round that cracked the outer housing. The exhaust is still venting, but the insulating jacket is gone. In these temperatures, that means heat loss, which means the boiler has to run harder to maintain the same internal temperature, which means we burn more wood per hour. I open the system interface. Daged assessment post-engagement. North fence breach detected 2.1 m gap post-failure. Gate mechanism, motorized system non-functional. Tower 3, targeting degraded, accuracy reduced 40%. Boiler exhaust, thermal insulation compromised, efficiency minus 22%. Secondary barrier, impact stress detected, integrity at 74%. Effective shelter level recalculated, 45. I read the number 45. We were at 58 when the assault started. The physical damage to the fence, the gate, the tower, and the boiler exhaust has dropped the system's functional assessment by 13 levels. At level 45, the thermal tolerance is adequate. We won't freeze. But the defensive rating has dropped to where it was before we built the towers. Before the perimeter was sealed, I show the assessment to Goro. He reads it without expression. Then he looks at the damage list again, item by item, the way he reads structural problems, figuring out what can be fixed in what order and what it costs. Fence first, he says. The gap is visible from the road. I know if anyone comes down that access road and sees a 2-meter breach in an outer fence, they know the building took a hit. Smaller groups, opportunists, they see that and they think the calculation has changed. It has changed. He looks at me. The fence we can fix with materials on hand, I say. The gate mechanism we can jury-rig. Manual bolt plus a secondary brace. The boiler exhaust needs a replacement housing, which means a supply run, or waiting for a level unlock. Tower 3 needs a sensor component that probably exists in the salvage market, if it's still accessible. I look at the window, minus 87 outside. And to get back to level 58, we need to rebuild everything the system considers damage to functional status before it restores the level rating. That's not a day of work. How long? A week minimum, maybe 10 days. And in 10 days, anyone who heard last night's engagement and wants to test the building will come before we're back to full capacity. Yes. Goro is quiet for a moment. Then he picks up his tools and goes to the fence. The 3 people from the secondary dead zone are still there when the sun comes up. 2 men and a woman, frostbitten, exhausted, not in any condition to be threats. I open the secondary barrier, and Ken brings them in at gunpoint, which is the correct precaution and which they don't resist. They're not Kazuma's core people. They're absorbed survivors from one of the shelters he took, assigned to the flanking unit because they were expendable. The woman has medical training, which Nana establishes in about 3 minutes. One of the men did construction work before the cold. The other one says he can cook. I look at them for a moment. Standard terms. All 3 accept before I finish the sentence. 13 residents now. Plus Shiro, who is sitting in the corner of the medical area with a bandage above his left eye that Nana applied with the same precision she applies everything, and who is watching the 3 new people with the evaluating stillness of an animal that has been right about people before and intends to be right again. The resource count at midday, firewood at current increased consumption rate, 6 weeks, not 3 months. The boiler efficiency loss is significant. Ammunition for the towers is at 60% of capacity after last night, enough for another engagement of similar duration, not enough for 2. The industrial generator is fine, fuel adequate, food unchanged, medical supplies used, but Nana says not critically. And the system at level 45, with 13 levels of functional rebuild between us and where we were when the assault started. I sit with the numbers for a while. Takashi comes in and sets his laptop on the table. He's been monitoring the radio since the column withdrew. 2 things. He says, first, the other 2 shelters that were hit last night, the one at 28 kilometers, went silent about 2 hours ago. Could be they shut down their radio to conserve. Could be something else. The one at 41 kilometers is still broadcasting. Weak signal, irregular, but there. What are they broadcasting? He turns the laptop toward me, a repeating shortwave message, cycling on a frequency he's tuned to. He's decoded it. Shelter operational, 31 residents, level 22. Holding, seeking contact with other active systems, level 22. 31 people, still standing after last night. Second thing, Takashi says, the north fence gap. I've been watching the access road on camera since 0600. He pulls up the feed. 3 separate individuals have come down the road, seen the fence and turned around. They didn't come to the gate, they just looked and left. Word travels fast when buildings burn and fences break. People who couldn't challenge a level 58 facility are doing arithmetic on a level 45-1. I look at Goro through the window. He's at the north fence with Daisuke and Hayashi, working on the post repair. The gap is smaller than it was an hour ago. Not fast enough, Takashi, I say. Reply to the 41-kilometer shelter, short, on their frequency. Tell them we're operational, level 45, North Higashiosaka. Ask them their location and what they need. He looks up. We're making contact? We're gathering information. I look at the damage assessment on the system interface, at the 13 levels between us and where we were. We can't rebuild alone at the speed we need. That shelter held last night. Whoever is running it made the same calculation I made. Hold the building, wait, don't panic. I close the interface. I want to know who that is. Shiro gets up from the medical area corner and walks to stand next to me. The bandage above his eye is already slightly crooked. He doesn't seem bothered. Outside -87, north fence gap at 1 meter and closing. 3 people came down the road and looked and left. The next ones might not leave. Resources, level 45, down from 58. 13 residents plus Shiro. North fence repairing. Estimated closure, 4 hours. Gate, manual only. Tower 3, degraded. Boiler efficiency, 22%. Firewood supply reduced to 6 weeks. Ammunition, 60%. First contact initiated with unknown shelter at 41 kilometers. Access road being scouted by unknown individuals. Rebuild timeline to level 58, 7 to 10 days minimum.